Welcome to another episode of Good Cooking, and today we're making a winter staple, beef stew. All right, Ben, so we got our stew meat here. We want to salt it up very nicely here. A little garlic powder, a little pepper, and then shake a little all-purpose flour in there. It's gonna give us a nice little crust on that stew, and I'm gonna actually just mix it with my hands. But before that, let's coat the bottom of our Dutch oven with a little bit of olive oil. Just a nice coating. Put that on medium heat. Now let's start mixing it, Ben. This will also help thicken the actual broth in the stew. The flour gives it a little texture, which is very nice. Ben, isn't stew one of your favorite dishes?
It is. I love a meal that also hydrates at the same time.
This is why the show's not doing well. I got one yellow onion here. We're gonna brown this all together, so let's get that in there and just continue mixing this a little bit.
Is stew one of your favorites?
Hell yeah, baby. You know what I love? I actually like when it sits a day. It absorbs all that flavor, all the herbs, the spices. We're using beef broth here. And I like when the broth gets a little bit thicker. I like a little bit of texture to it. So we may later on have to make what they call a slurry. It's a mixture of cornstarch and a little bit of water. If you want to know what slurry is ahead of time, just Google Joe Biden speeches. You get a little slurry there. So I'm just gonna give this a stir. Let that go for a minute. Let's start putting our beef in there, Benny. Spread them out. You don't need them on top of each other. I mean, my mom used to make this growing up a lot, but she did it in high heels and she had a really bad attitude when making it. But it always came out delicious. No, you need this meat. You gotta go to your butcher, you gotta tell them I'm making a stew, and they give you stew meat. I went to the butcher today, Huntington Meats. Shout out to one of our beloved partners. Ask good old Johnny and Jim, who are both there today, along with the former owner of the Dodgers, Frank McCourt.
Look at you.
Yeah, so we were hobnobbing, talking baseball. Mr. McCourt hit on Lindsay a little bit.
Oh, fun.
And I said, Mr. McCourt, please take her. We'll all win. Oh, sorry, it's not McCourt, it's O'Malley.
Frank McCourt is the other Dodgers owner.
Sounds like we're splitting hairs. So I'm just gonna start taking this out. I'm gonna put it in the bowl, because then I'm gonna put our wine in there. You're also gonna remember, you don't need to cook this all the way through, because it's gonna continue to cook when we let it simmer for about an hour, hour and a half. Got our red wine here, Ben, and we're just gonna pour it in. You ready? And we're just gonna scrape the bottom. See how we're getting all of those little bits from the beef up and off of there? That's gonna add to the flavor of our roast, of our stew rather. Man, I'm all over the place.
We did the roast.
We did a roast last week.
Should we start over?
What are you gonna do? I'm 40. I'm putting this back in, our beef and our onion. So we're gonna put that back on medium, stir that in. I have 6 cups of beef broth. So we're just gonna pour that right in. Got our veggies. So I got a mix of carrots and Yukon Gold potatoes. And I just did a rough chop, as you can see the size, because you have to also understand when this thing cooks for an hour and a half, 2 hours on a low simmer, they're gonna get very tender, they're gonna fall apart. And I just like this kind of size in the stew. It just goes well. I like to season it a little bit, but I'm gonna season it at the end too. So let's just do a little sprangle of salt. And we're gonna use a little garlic, a little pepper. And then I'm throwing in a couple sprigs of thyme and rosemary.
What's the difference between rosemary and thyme?
I'm not answering these questions anymore. So what I am gonna do is I'm gonna put a lid on this, and then we're gonna let it simmer on a low simmer for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. At that point, what you should do is take a little piece of meat, see if it's nice and tender. If not, it can go a little bit longer. So if you've been with us this whole episode, you can actually see that the light has changed because we have been slow simmering this for some hours now. However, we're gonna put our peas in. What do you think about that, Ben? I'm using some frozen peas. You wanna use some fresh peas? God bless, whatever. We're using this. So what you wanna do is once you put your peas in, give it a few minutes. The peas cook up pretty quick. That's why you wanna add it later on, right before you're about to serve it. Give it about 4 or 5 minutes. Those babies will be ready. So once you got this simmering a little bit, I like to create a little slurry, which is just a little bit of cornstarch and water to thicken it up a little bit. That's how I like it. If you like it a little bit more soupy, leave it as is. But you're gonna add this very slowly and just slowly stir it in. And once you get the thickness that you want, ready to serve. You know, with the winter upon us and the snow and sleet outside, and you thinking about all the stuff that bothers you in the world, like you don't make enough money or your wife is ugly, there's only one thing that you can put on the stove that's gonna make your heart feel absolutely complete, and that's beef stew. The potatoes, the onions, the carrots, the peas, they all come together in perfect harmony to create a dish that is going to make you feel glorious. If you want this recipe, as always, it's in the description below. And from our house to yours, bon appetit. Oh, wow. That red wine has a Met stopper in it.
Yep.
Oh,
That's what I was talking about.
this smells like defeat. Oh, see, I already spilled it.